a good-looking group after dinner. Did you enjoy dinner?
Yeah.
It was pretty good, wasn't it? Ernie, thanks for bringing me down here this evening. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure, gentlemen.
Yeah. I had a chance to talk with Ernie just before the meeting, and he was sharing some of the things that he sees for the company, but most importantly, he was actually sharing a dream with me. See, he dreamt that he died, and he went to heaven, saw St. Peter, and St. Peter said, Ernie, I got a problem here. I don't know quite what to do with you. He says, you know, you're an engineer and a scientist. Yes, there's no, you know. In your special case, I'm going to give you a choice whether you want to go to heaven or hell. So Ernie said, a choice? That ain't bad. What are the odds? He said, great. He said, where should I start? He said, go through that door right over there, and you'll go to hell. So Ernie preambles along and looks through hell, and he's having a great time. There is music and lights and women and gambling, and he is having a super, super time. And all of a sudden, he's back in front of St. Peter. He said, what do you think? He said, pretty good. He said, well, want to see heaven? He said, sure. So now he's preambulatory going through heaven, and he notices that it's kind of quiet, and laid back, and soft music, and sort of like wing beats in the background, and harp music, and sort of really kind of easy going. And then he's pulled back. So St. Peter said, have you decided? He said, you know, this is a really tough decision on what I'm doing here. But I think I'm going to choose hell. St. Peter presses a button. Ernie goes down. All of a sudden, he's drowning. He's pulling himself out. He's trying to keeps on getting pushed down, and he's pulling up, and he gets pushed down, and he's gagging, and he's choking. Finally, he gets his hands on the side, and he pulls over, and he sees the devil. He's got the pitchfork, the tails, and the horns. He's looking. His eyes are bulging. He says, oh, what happened here? I was just here 5 minutes ago, and it was great. He said, yeah, that's when you're a prospect. Now you're a customer. So any business's greatest fear is that we spend all this time and energy recruiting customers, and then what do? We neglect them. We don't service all of their needs. And this is where leadership really comes in. What do leaders do? What does a leader do?
Have a vision.
Has a vision. What else does a leader do, Charlene?
They allow their group to grow.
They allow their group to grow. Bob?
Utilizes their expertise to grow or move the organization forward.
All of those things, but leaders also set the pace to do the right things. In other words, what they're looking for is opportunity. If you want to take a war scenario, you're looking for where you can take best advantage to make sure that you have the victory. And in business, we do a lot of marketing to do what? Make sure we're inside and other people are outside. Now, one of the famous things in dealings, and it's kind of interesting because, you know, there's more brain power in this room right now than one could really imagine. Think about it. See, my greatest challenge is, what do you do to tell people something new when you're with a group that knows everything? Have you ever thought of that? So what we're looking to do is, what can we bring to the forefront to do it? Leaders have to look around and say, where is our opportunity? How often do you sit down with your customers? Now, I've talked to a number of you, and you sit down and talk to them as often as possible. But here's the scenario that I'm seeing. We're sitting down, and we're talking with the customer, and we're showing them this great plan that we have for them. And the customer says, well, you know, I have this other thing that I want to talk about. He says, not now, I got to tell you what my plan is. Did anybody ever see that with somebody who's always thinking from the left brain? Let me tell you about what I have here. Gets all done telling everything he wants here, packs up and leaves, and never asks the customer, oh, what do you want to talk about? What is that called? Leaving money on the table, is it not? When your customer brings up a question that they want to talk to you, what does that normally mean? It means that they have a need and that you, or they're expecting for you to fill it. So when was the last time you had a conversation with a customer and you did all the talking and they did all the listening? And by the way, This is normal. Are we normal? Now, how many people here in this room think they're very smart? May I see a show of hands? Now, come on. See, every one of you ought to be raising your hand. You got PhDs in here, you got scientists, you got engineers, you got all these people that are very smart. And you're very good at what you do, are you not? And what you do very well is break down problems and give answers. And that means you're talking more than you're listening. In other words, if somebody asked, Ernie, how long have you been an engineer?
25 years.
All right. Now, we talked one time a while back about using geothermal heating in a house. You remember that conversation?
Yes.
And I asked you, what do you know about geothermal heating? And you didn't say, well, I don't know much, but 45 minutes later, before I got a word in edgewise, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So when a client comes to you with an issue, what do? You just keep on telling more and more facts rather than stopping and saying, what would you like to know? Now that's also a dangerous question for a scientist or engineer, because if they say, well, they may say, well, I'm not sure, tell me, and then what do? Launch, right? Right in it. Rather than saying, okay, well, if we're looking at this aspect of it, then we can talk about this, or if we're looking at this aspect, which one would you like to know more about? And then they'll tell you that. And then you say, why are you interested in this? Now, where are the questions coming from? From you, right? In other words, you're asking more questions rather than giving statements. And why are you asking more questions? It's the only way to get any information. I am dead serious about that. When you're talking, you're not learning anything. And in fact, your client is not learning anything either, because that's not their interest. Now, I noticed that we have some females in the audience. Now, this is by the bell-shaped curve. All right? When men and women are in a conversation, who talks more? Just one man, one woman. Who talks more?
Women.
That's a myth. That is a myth. By all surveys, what happens when a man and a woman is in a conversation, a man will use more words, talk more sentences, and take more time. Let me give you an example of how that works. Woman goes on vacation. Let's say she went to Europe. You say, how was your vacation in Europe? She said, it was lovely. I enjoyed the Alps. Then she said, I heard you were on vacation too. Yeah, I went to France. Well, tell me about it. Then he tells you about Charlemagne and the war materials and how the advancement of the armies went and how the territories changed and how all the soldiers fought and how the different wars came about, how England invaded France and how William the Great invaded. 45 minutes later, conversation is over, isn't it? What we want to look at, especially this rule as leaders, you want to have the vision to go out there and see the opportunity, and you want to be asking. You want to be asking the questions of your client rather than telling them the answer to the question. When you start looking at what you have to do to market properly, and you have to look at growing the business, you have to find out where the opportunity is. And here's the other thing that you shared with me when we were talking. There is more business out there than you can handle. There is more business than you can handle. And then when I hear about that, all of a sudden I find out we don't have the resources. So are you talking because you're afraid you may get the business? By the way, many people are afraid to nail the business. What happens when you get the business? In other words, you find, as a leader, you find the resources and what's needed to make the business work for you. I'm a small business person. And when a big contract comes in, we don't moan and groan, we don't have the resources. What we look is how we do get the resources. That's leadership. So you want to market to make sure people know you're out there. You want to have the leadership so you're able to go out there, talk with them, ask them the questions, bring the business in, and then you have prosperity and success from both leadership and marketing. Toastmasters.